Hello, America. Let's talk about the weather. As the leaves begin to turn and that familiar crispness fills the morning air, our thoughts naturally drift toward the season ahead, winter. For some, it's a time of cozy sweaters, hot chocolate, and the magical silence of a fresh snowfall. For others, it brings to mind shoveling driveways, icy roads, and bundling up against a biting wind. This year, it looks like we all might need to find some extra warm blankets, and maybe even a bigger shovel. The signs we are seeing in the oceans and the atmosphere are all pointing toward a winter that could be one for the books, with colder temperatures and more snow than we have seen in quite some time for many parts of our great country. The whispers are getting louder among weather experts. The long-range forecasts are starting to paint a very clear picture, and it's a chilly one. We are looking at a pattern that strongly favors blasts of Arctic air making their way much farther south than they typically do. Think about those days when the air feels so cold it hurts to breathe. We might be in for a few more of those this season, and with that deep cold comes the potential for significant snow. We're not just talking about a light dusting here and there. We're talking about the kind of snowstorms that can shut down cities, the ones that kids dream about for a snow day. It's a powerful setup, and it's brewing right now, getting ready to make its grand entrance. So, what does this mean for you? It means it's time to start thinking ahead. You might wonder how we can possibly know what the winter will be like months in advance. It's a great question. Predicting the weather isn't about looking into a crystal ball. It's a science, and it involves looking for big clues in our planet's massive climate system. Think of it like being a detective. We gather evidence from all over the world to piece together the most likely story. The two most important places we look for clues are the vast oceans and the atmosphere high above us. The temperature of the ocean water, especially in the giant Pacific Ocean, holds a tremendous amount of power over our weather patterns. These temperature changes can set off a chain reaction that affects the weather for everyone. One of the biggest players in our winter forecast is a pattern called La Niña. It's a specific cooling of the water in the Pacific Ocean along the equator. When we see a La Niña, even a weak one, it tells us that the jet stream, that big river of air high in the sky that steers storms, is likely to behave in a certain way. This year, we're seeing the signs of a weak La Niña, which is often the perfect ingredient for a cold and snowy winter in many parts of the United States. It's a pattern that tends to open the door for Arctic air to come rushing down from Canada. Beyond La Niña, we also look at other ocean areas. For instance, warmer than average water in the Gulf of Mexico or off the East Coast can provide extra moisture for storms. When that moisture meets up with a blast of cold air, you get snow, and sometimes a lot of it. We also use powerful computer programs called weather models. These models take in all the data we have, ocean temperatures, air pressure, wind patterns, and run complex calculations to simulate what the atmosphere might do in the coming weeks and months. So, let's talk more about this thing called La Niña. The name might sound a little mysterious, but the concept is fairly simple. It's all about the temperature of the water in a huge area of the Pacific Ocean near the equator. Normally, this water is warm. During a La Niña, the ocean surface gets cooler in the Central Pacific. During a La Niña, the ocean surface gets cooler in the Eastern Pacific. Think of it like a giant natural air conditioner for part of the ocean. This cooling doesn't just stay in the water, it changes the air above it, and that change can ripple across the entire globe, influencing our weather, especially in winter. You might hear us talk about El Niño and La Niña, the opposite. In El Niño, that part of the Pacific gets warmer than average. Both are part of the El Niño Southern Oscillation, ENSO. When neither is present, we call it neutral. This winter, the forecast calls for a weak La Niña. Weak is important. A strong La Niña can sometimes create a pattern that is too consistent, locking the cold air up in the northern states. A weak La Niña, however, is often the sweet spot for a classic, cold American winter. A weak La Niña tends to make the jet stream wavy and amplified across North America. Think of that river of air in the sky. Instead of a straight west to east flow, it develops big dips and ridges. A big ridge, a northward bulge, often sets up over the western U.S. bringing warmer conditions there and drier conditions there. Downstream, the jet takes a deep dive over the central US and over the eastern US. That dip becomes an open highway for frigid Arctic air pouring down from Canada, bringing the cold with it. Models are suggesting this setup for the upcoming winter. Weak La Niña encourages a ridge of high pressure near the west coast, which promotes a deep trough over the eastern two-thirds of the country. This winter, the United States is expected to be a story of two very different weather patterns, particularly when you look at the east and west coasts. The setup we are anticipating, driven by that weak La Niña, typically creates a sharp divide right down the country. For the west coast, California, Oregon, Washington. The forecast generally calls for a season that is warmer and drier than average. That big ridge of high pressure tends to park itself over or just off the coast. High pressure usually means sinking air, which leads to fewer clouds, less precipitation, milder temperatures. While this might sound pleasant, it could bring some serious concerns. A drier than normal winter in the west is not good news for a region that relies on winter snowpack in the mountains for its water supply throughout the rest of the year. Sierra Nevada, Rocky Mountains. That snow acts as a natural reservoir, melting slowly in spring and summer to feed rivers and fill reservoirs. A lack of snow could worsen ongoing drought conditions, raising concerns for water shortages and an increased risk of wildfires next year. Now let's travel across the country to the East Coast. Here, the story is completely different. New England, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast. The forecast is for a winter that is colder and snowier than average. The dominant weather pattern is expected to feature that deep trough in the jet stream, which will act as a superhighway for Arctic air. This corridor could be in the line of fire for several significant snow events. The warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean will be a key factor here. As storm systems move across the country and hit the coast, they will be able to tap into that abundant moisture. This is the classic recipe for a blockbuster nor'easter. These powerful storms can bring heavy snow, strong winds, and coastal flooding. So, for everyone along the eastern seaboard, make sure your snowblower is working, you have plenty of salt for your sidewalks, and you're prepared for potential power outages. It's shaping up to be a true, old-fashioned winter for the East. For the millions of people living in the Midwest and the Great Plains, this winter is shaping up to be a test of endurance. This region is often ground zero for the battle between bitterly cold Arctic air from the north and milder air from the south. This year, it looks like the cold is going to win that battle more often than not. These Arctic blasts can send temperatures plummeting far below zero, with dangerous wind chills. This is a serious threat that requires preparation. Let's break down what the weather models are showing for the winter, month by month. It's important to remember this is a long-range outlook, so we're talking general trends, not daily forecasts. The pattern should start taking shape in late fall. November will likely be a transition month, swings between mild and cold. Toward the end of the month, we expect the colder-than-average pattern to begin locking in across the central and eastern United States, setting the stage for what's to come. This could mean a colder-than-usual Thanksgiving for many, with the first hints of real winter weather. December is when winter arrives in full force. Models show a strong signal for a positive PNA pattern, ridge in the west and a deep trough in the east. Expect widespread colder-than-average temps across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the East Coast. With that cold air, the storm track is likely to become very active. This could be a very snowy month for many, potentially leading to a white Christmas for a large portion of the country. The contrast between cold air and the warm Atlantic could fuel powerful early-season snowstorms. January is typically the coldest month, and this year looks similar. The western ridge and eastern trough pattern should continue, keeping the floodgates of Arctic air open. For the East Coast and the South, January is prime time for winter storms. Some models hint at a brief midwinter thaw, where the pattern breaks down before the cold reloads. Heading into February, models show a cold, active pattern for the east. Below-average temperatures should persist from the Great Lakes to the northeast. The west, meanwhile, is likely to remain largely warm and dry. The pattern may start to break down into March, but not before winter leaves its mark as a truly cold and snowy season for millions. With a potentially harsh winter on the horizon, being prepared is the best way to stay safe, comfortable, and healthy. Preparation doesn't have to be complicated. It starts with your clothing. Dressing in layers is the most effective way to stay warm. A moisture-wicking base, an insulating middle like fleece or wool, and a waterproof, windproof outer layer. Don't forget your extremities. A warm hat, insulated waterproof gloves, and wool socks help prevent frostbite and keep you comfortable outside. Next, think about your home. Before the first deep freeze, have your heating system checked. Clean your chimney if you have a fireplace. Seal drafts around windows and doors with weather stripping, caulk, door sweeps, or plastic window film. Travel can be dangerous. Get your car serviced and check tires, battery, antifreeze, and wipers. Keep a winter emergency kit in your trunk. Pack a blanket, extra gloves, a hat, a flashlight with extra batteries, a small shovel, an ice scraper, jumper cables, non-perishable snacks, and water. Prepare a home emergency kit with flashlights, a battery-powered radio, extra batteries, a first aid kit, non-perishable food and water for at least 3 days per person, and necessary medications. It's time to find those winter coats that have been hiding in the back of the closet. Check on your home's heating system, and have a conversation with your family about being prepared. This isn't about causing alarm, it's about giving you a friendly heads up so you can be ready for whatever Mother Nature decides to send our way. A colder, snowier winter can be a beautiful and wondrous thing, especially when you are prepared for it. From the bustling streets of the East Coast to the wide-open plains of the Midwest, this winter has the potential to leave a lasting impression on all of us. In the sections to come, we will break it all down for you in simple, easy-to-understand terms. We'll look at the science behind the forecast, explaining why the oceans thousands of miles away can affect the snow in your backyard. We will explore which parts of the country are most likely to see the biggest impacts and what kind of weather you can expect month by month. Finally, we will share some simple, practical tips to help you and your loved ones stay safe, warm, and ready for a winter that promises to be anything but ordinary. So stick with us as we dive into what could be the coldest, snowiest season in years. We are looking at the sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, checking for that weak La Niña. We are monitoring the warm water in the Atlantic that could fuel big snowstorms. And we are watching the computer models day after day to see if they are holding steady with their predictions. Right now, all these signs are pointing in the same direction, a winter that will demand our attention and our respect. We're putting all the clues together to give you the best possible forecast. Stay safe and stay warm.